In the 1960s, the U.S. government was losing a lot of its top secret information, and they couldn't find out how. Well, through a quirk of fate, actually, they found out that it was because the Russians were using psychic spies. Well, everybody had a good laugh over that, but then somebody reminded them, yeah, but they're getting our information. So they wisely decided that if the Russians have it, and if it's working for them, then maybe we'd better look into it. So they formed a contract with a research group at Stanford Research Institute International to find out whether or not intuition can be used for espionage purposes, for spying. Come to find out it can. The researchers at Stanford settled on a methodology called controlled remote viewing, invented by a man named Ingo Swann. They developed it into a viable military application, and once they did, a long series of projects started, which the public now knows as Stargate. I won't go into the history of Stargate. Suffice it to say that we collected intelligence on military leaders, governmental leaders, plans and intentions for the next day of battle, and for such things as finding and rescuing hostages in hostage situations. Anyway, at the end of these projects in 1996, the CIA effectively declassified the fact that the government had been using controlled remote viewers for collecting intelligence. Once that became public knowledge, then the science, which never was, by the way, classified, what became available to the public. When the information became public that the U.S. government had used remote viewers for espionage purposes and that it was scientifically acceptable, psychics of all kinds decided this is scientifically acceptable, and so we're going to start calling what we've always done remote viewing. And immediately out across the internet, you started getting remote viewers of all different kinds who basically had no idea what remote viewing was. Remote viewing is a science, nothing more. Basically, you might use the analogy that if being psychic is a vacation, controlled remote viewing is the car that gets you there. It's not going to give you more scenery once you get there. It's just a tool. It gets your intuitive ability to be put to use in a controlled, organized fashion, and allows you to use what intuitive ability you have. There are a lot of people out on the internet saying that if you take remote viewing courses from them, it'll make you psychic. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's a tool. Whatever psychic ability you have, it will teach you how to use it. A lot of people are surprised at what abilities they do have, but it's a tool. That's all it is. There's no magic. It will not make you psychic. It's a tool, and it's a science. So as you look around the internet for information on remote viewing, it can be very important to remember that things labeled remote viewing may not be scientific at all. It's controlled remote viewing, which is the science developed at Stanford for the U.S. government and for the U.S. military.
Welcome to Dreamland. This is Marla Fries. Well, my guest today has worked for over 17 years for the military and has trained hundreds of students in remote viewing. His company, PSI, Problem Solutions and Innovations, is dedicated to training people in the strict science of controlled remote viewing and has offered the services to private citizens, companies, agencies, and other customers who need information which cannot be gained through any other means. His book, which we'll be talking about today, The Seventh Sense, is an in-depth account of the secrets of remote viewing as told by a psychic spy for the U.S. military. He is a terrific teacher and an all-around great guy, and I am so honored to have him on our program today. Welcome, Lynn Buchanan.
Hey, that introduction makes me want to meet me. That's great.
well, that's the truth.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, Lynn, I know that there's so many listeners who are interested in what remote viewing really is. So, how can you give us a little overview of what controlled remote viewing is?
Okay, I'm glad you said controlled remote viewing because that is the method that was used by the U.S. military for intelligence gathering for, close to 20 years. And I was the military trainer in that unit the last years I was in service. But the controlled remote viewing is a science that was developed in the laboratory at Stanford Research Institute to mimic the work of natural psychic. They found out that the Russians had psychic spies, and they had a really good laugh over that,
Right.
But then they realized, but they're getting our secrets.
Mm.
And so all of a sudden somebody started taking it seriously. And so they figured, well, if the Russians have it, we have to have it too.
What year was that, Lynn?
Oh, that was back in, I think, 69 or 70, somewhere around there.
Okay.
It was a process that went through, the realization, the finding out that the Russians had it and so forth. And so it was a decision that you couldn't put an exact date on. But the U.S. military, because of the politics in the United States and everything, did not want to use psychics. So they went out to Stanford Research, where a man named Dr. Hal Puthoff had been doing some research on what's now called non-locality, how the mind can perceive things that are beyond the five normal senses. And so they gave him a grant of around $50,000 to develop some kind of a method. And he got in touch with a man named Pat Price, who was a retired policeman, and a man named Ingo Swann, who had been doing some research in this. And they developed a technique that could be used by just the common soldier on the ground to emulate the work of a natural psychic.
Well, I think the aspects of controlled remote viewing is so important because, people are throwing the idea around that, I can remote view, but this is a highly skilled, detailed way to do this.
Oh, yes. It's a martial art of the mind, really.
That's a wonderful way of putting it. So how long did it take Ingo to develop this protocol?
Several years. I think he had been developing this protocol long before he got in touch with Al Puthoff. And basically, they brought Ingo into the laboratory, and they said, tell me what's in the box. And Ingo basically said, hey, you're wasting my time and talents. If you want to know what's in the box, open the box. And he said, give me the coordinates for any place in the world, and I'll tell you what's there and what's going on there.
Wow.
And so they tried it out on several places, and he did just exactly that. And so they started codifying what could be done with this methodology and designing it so that, you could pull a grunt soldier off the battleground, teach him how to do this, and send him back so he could tell his commander what was over the hill and where to point the guns and things like that.
Well, so how did they pull you all together to do this?
They had the unit for about 10 years before I got there. Due to a psychokinesis incident that happened in over in Augsburg, Germany.
Oh, are you going to share that? Because it's quite a story. Oh, please. Oh, if listeners are going to hear anything today, they've got to hear this story.
I had spent about 5 months working, developing a computer program that would tie together all of the computers within the U.S. intelligence field station over in Germany. Now, we had computers from 12 different countries, and old computers, new computers, everything, and they weren't talking to each other. So anyway, I got the program written after about 5 months, and this other sergeant had been extremely angry because he wanted the job to do it. And so when the day came for me to show my program, he sabotaged it. And I had the generals from 12 different countries sitting there. I hit the enter key, and the entire field station went dead. And so,
was it your anger that shut it down?
I looked around, and everybody was laughing at me, and I looked in the doorway, and there was this other sergeant, and he mouthed, "Gotcha," and pointed his finger at me. And I got flaming angry. Mm-hmm. Well, I have always had this problem with anger that when I get really, really mad, something dies.
Something will break?
Yeah. And so anyway, the computer station went down, and for a time that's still classified, in fact, we had no intelligence effort along the German border.
Oh, my gosh.
And so anyway, this General Stubblebine, had heard about the incident, and he came out a few months later and stood me at attention and had this scowl on his face, and he said, "Did you kill my computers with your mind?" And that was the last thing in the world I expected any general to say to me. And I was standing there thinking, my great-grandchildren are going to be paying for computers, and I could lie about this, and nobody would know, And sort of out of my mouth, I heard the words, "Yes, sir, I did." Oh. And anyway, the scowl disappeared, and this grin came over his face, and he said, "Far effing out. Have I ever got a job for you?"
That's great.
So what he wanted me to do was he wanted to bring me back to Washington, D.C., and form a unit that would, first of all, destroy enemy computers.
Sure.
But then later learn how to not destroy them, but to control the data within them. Mm. And so anyway, they brought me back to Washington, D.C., and he had to get funding from Congress for this new unit, and Congress said, not no, but hell no.
Right.
And because that's smites of mind control, and they had been caught doing mind control before, they weren't going to get caught doing that again.
Oh, I see.
So anyway, there I was in Washington, D.C., no job, no assignment. So he took me by the remote viewing unit, stuck me into that, and I became a remote viewer.
Wow. That's such a great story. And how many people were in the unit when you first got there?
We never had more than 6 viewers at a time. And then, of course, staff, staff usually of about 3 people. The bean counters loved us because every military unit has personnel that have to be funded and equipment that has to be funded. And in our unit, the personnel was the equipment.
Right.
So, they got us for half price.
Yeah, pretty cheap, I would imagine. So, well, let's talk about this in just a second. I'm going to take a little break, and we'll be back, and we'll discuss more about what happened in that unit.
Okay, sounds good.
Next.
So, Lynn, here you are in this new unit, psychic guys in the military, and you start identifying targets. What did you start doing?
When I went in, it was during the Iranian hostage the crisis, And so the first week I went in, we got the word that the unit was being disbanded. And come to find out, it had been disbanded every single year that it had been in effect because it was only funded for 1 year at a time. And every single year we had to go in and prove our work to some intelligence subcommittee. And so the following week, we went in and proved, or they went in and proved that they could do the work and that they were valuable. So then I started training, and when they first showed me, when they first told me what they did for a living as a unit, I thought, hey, I'm on candid camera. This is some kind of a big joke. The military doesn't do this. And sure enough, I started watching them work. And I was just amazed at the information they could get, way beyond anything that I had ever seen any psychic get, in detail. And, they would draw maps of locations, exact maps. They could draw the equipment that was at the location. They could give the number of personnel there. They could actually get in and find out the plans and intentions for the next day of battle.
Fascinating.
Really, between the time Ingo invented this, or designed it, and the military had put it to use for 10 years, they had done a lot of improvement and a lot of, finessing of it. And so the end result was that they could do things that, just bowled me over.
Well, we need to also preface, I think, that the people that you train now they're people from all walks of life. They don't necessarily have to be psychic. I came in there and trained with you because I wanted to expand what I was working on, but some of the best people in the class, I think, were accountants or something.
Oh, yeah.
So how did they determine in the military who was going to be in this group? We have your story, but what were the other people like?
Well, the other people were in there. Some were there just because their name popped up in a computer whenever a slot opened up for them. Some were in there because they knew someone. And most of us were there because, first of all, we had to have a set of security clearances that just way up over your head and everything. And so they looked for security clearances. They also looked for basically non-psychic people.
Right.
This was never designed for psychics. Now, we teach a class for psychics where we teach the control, but not the remote viewing. And because, they come in with their talent already intact. And if they apply those controls, they are just what we in Texas call barn burners.
I had some problems. I had some problems. I remember tapping into a site and starting to fall asleep and getting real cold, and I think the target was a woman in a freezer in a rider van someplace in Arizona. Yeah, so it's pretty dicey for some of us like that.
Oh, yeah, and we have learned the hard way that you don't give targets like that to people who are very empathic because they can really suffer for it.
I think I got seasick. One of my targets was a boat, and I think one of the funniest targets, Lynn, was I started smelling hot dogs and hearing pops, like pop pop, like a gun popping, and feeling very anxious. And my target was a cow going to slaughter. Yeah. So you've got to be careful with us. So tell me some of the things that you guys worked on. What were the most fascinating? Tell us some of your fascinating cases that you worked on.
some of the most fascinating for me were we did a particle beam weapon over in Russia, and some of our customers needed to know basically what was going on inside the beam. And so they asked for a volunteer remote viewer. You know, you can't stick instruments into the beam because the minute you turn it on, I mean, the thing is just dissolved.
Right.
Nothing.
Huh.
And so they asked, somebody got the brilliant idea of putting a remote viewer into the beam, and I volunteered for it. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen because in the beam, time itself is basically destroyed. And within that beam, I could see up and down the entire length of my life as though it were thousands and thousands of different people that I could talk to.
Wow.
And the beam itself was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
What did it look like?
Well, the bottom line was I brought the information back that our scientists needed to find out what was going on with their particle beam weapon. But it was the most amazing thing that has ever happened to me, and I don't think I can ever fully explain it to anyone. But the minute I would realize the entire span of time, it would coalesce and I would be me again, and then the minute I was me again, it would expand back again. And there was basically every facet and every day of my life that was just spread out in front of me, up and down the beam.
How fascinating.
It's amazing. It's fantastic.
Well, what actually happens to people, Lynn, when they start this work? When they go through all the protocol, and the protocol is very specific. I mean, it's regimented, and you've got to follow it step by step. But what is actually going on with the sitter's psyche? What's going on with their unconscious?
Basically, what happens is I said it's a martial art of the mind. The training doesn't make you psychic. I mean, people say everybody already is psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then why aren't they doing the work? What this does is it trains you to talk on a very real basis to your subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And your subconscious mind seems to have access to all the information that you'll ever need in the universe or in time and space. And this allows you to simply hold a conversation with your subconscious mind so that you can ask the question and get the answer.
That's a really wonderful way of saying it. And oh my God, that's why I think that this training is so awesome and so powerful, just for the mere sake of getting to know who we are as individuals.
Oh yeah, when you start talking to your subconscious mind, we teach it. It was taught to us as intelligence collection because we could go out into the universe and get information that was exact. But the fact is, when you talk to your subconscious mind and you get to be friends with it and learn to hold a conversation, it knows what your phone number was when you were 3 years old. It knows why you do those things that you don't want to do, but you wind up doing them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it has all of that information, not just about the universe, but about you yourself. It's a phenomenal.
Well, the practicality of what it can do to teach you just about the vastness of our itty-bitty, teeny brains. I mean, the idea that our subconscious does know everything and this application will prove it is staggering.
It really is, yeah.
Well, so what is actually happening with this work now? Are they using it in the military?
Oh, well, I don't know. I retired. They don't tell me anything. I sincerely hope they are because I think it would be stupid not to.
Mm-hmm.
That changes, of course, the question to, does our government ever do anything stupid?
Oh.
Yeah.
Gee.
I'm afraid I know the answer to that one already. But,
Well, the idea when I tell people about this work, and they say, well, where's Osama bin Laden? Do you believe that they do know where he is?
Oh, sure, we've known that.
Yeah.
All along, we know it. The fact is that they don't want to catch him.
Right.
And so...
Not good for business, is it?
Well, it's not good for continuing a war. As soon as he gets caught, there's going to be people saying, okay, it's time to end the war.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, they're saying that already. But anyway, that's into politics. I try to stay out of it.
Yeah, okay, we'll stay out of that end, but maybe Whitley will talk about it, so get prepared. So what is the application now for you?
We are now using it for business, for a lot of police work, finding missing children, finding missing evidence, drug interdiction. We're using it for scientific research and development, for corporations and all. We're, not too long ago, did a thing on one moon development company wanted us to tell them the best way to get a temporary moon base until a permanent moon base could be built.
Wow.
And so what our remote viewers found by simply going into the future and looking at the temporary moon base that worked was that if you take a huge sheet of mylar plastic, which is very tough plastic, and flexible, and stretch it over a crater, then you have a sealed environment. The crater acts as the walls and the plastic acts as the ceiling. You fill it with 16 pounds of pressure, which is air pressure at sea level, and that's about half of what you put in a bicycle tire. And then, if a meteorite strikes that plastic, you put some duct tape over it, and it seals the hole. It doesn't crash like a glass dome or a metal dome would. And so when this company found out that the temporary moon base could be built out of a roll of plastic and a bunch of rolls of duct tape, they were ecstatic.
I bet.
And so...
Well, let's take a break here, and I want to come back and talk more about that.
Okay.
You're giving us a new idea for another way to seal our vegetables in the refrigerator. Is that what you're talking about, Lynn?
Or to seal people in the moon.
Oh, my gosh. This is fascinating.
We've done a lot of archaeological work. One customer asked us to look at a thing that a diver had reported, and what we found was a pre-Mayan city that predates the Mayans by several centuries.
Where is this?
It's in the Atlantic.
And what was the protocol? They said do what? What was it? Did you have the target?
No, they asked us to look at a section of the ocean, and we found a pyramid, we found the ruins of a city and all that. And so they sent down divers, and sure enough, there's the pyramid, there's the old walls, crumbled walls.
That's amazing.
All that, yeah. And
what did you ever remote view Mars?
Yeah, personally had to have.
What'd you get?
Well, that there was a civilization. In fact, the first what's called a PSI experience. It's perfect site integration is what it's called. What happens is there comes a time in a controlled remote viewing session where you stop paying attention to your surroundings because you're so focused on the target, and all of a sudden the impressions coming from your subconscious are so strong on your body that you actually see the target, feel it, hear it, and so on. And I had been given this target on Mars, and it was underground, and so I I got really focused on this. Of course, I had no idea it was Mars because in controlled remote viewing, you never tell a viewer what the target is.
Right.
And so I found this passageway out, and I walked out, and all of a sudden here was this red landscape far down below me. I was at a hole in the side of this slanted structure that was made out of old weathered stones and all. And I looked up. The sun was out, but it was dim, and it was, things weren't right.
Mm.
And there was an ice-cold wind on my face, and it was very cold. So anyway, they told me that I had, after I finished the session, wrote my summary, they told me I had viewed Mars. And I thought, okay, well, that's pretty neat. But the thing was that was the first PSI I had, and all of a sudden, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
My mind was there, and I could see it, touch it, taste it, feel the wind on my face and everything. Well, anyway, I was at a installation, and they had on their wall an extremely high-resolution picture of the Sedona region. And, you see these pictures of the face on Mars and all that, and they're all blurry.
Mm.
Come on, they can read license plates from 250 miles up. You really think that a mountain would be blurry? So anyway, this place had the Sedona region, and there was this pyramid-type hill, and I looked, and there was this little hole in it, and I remembered what I had seen from that hole, and sure enough, looking out from that pyramid, that's exactly where everything was.
How
and so
interesting.
it was an amazing thing, really is.
This work is, I just, I only went through the intermediate course, and I still am, I feel like I'm present, even talking with you, being back in Tempe, Arizona. You and I worked on a couple of cases together, and I know how important this work can be with law enforcement. How are they receiving you, Lynn? Are you working for families or agencies?
We never work for families.
Okay.
And anyone who does psychic work, I urge them to please never work for the family. Only work through the police.
I agree with you.
The police gets badgered by the family and so on. And it takes the family on an emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely.
Every time you tell them something, they get high, and then the police won't do anything about it because it came from a psychic, and so they crash again.
Right.
It's not fair to anybody.
Mm-mm.
Only work through the police. And, well, along with that, I'm still adhering to Presidential Order 11905, which says that I cannot collect intelligence on U.S. citizens without due channels.
And what are those due channels?
Well, one of those due channels is when working criminals, you have to work through the police.
Mm-hmm.
And working for the family is not due channels. And so it's against the law, basically, for me to work for a family.
Good to know.
Yeah, because we were strapped with that presidential order that we could never collect intelligence on U.S. citizens in any way unless directed by Congress. So, you've heard the old thing, it'd take an act of Congress to make me do that. In our case, that was very true.
Mm-hmm.
But we are doing work for police. We don't advertise. We let the police, if they're satisfied with their work, we know they'll tell people. And we have more business than we can really...
Right. Well, I think one of the fascinating things that I learned with you, other than the technicalities of the controlled remote viewing, is what we did with maps. Can you explain to our listeners a little bit about what we did with those maps in identifying targets?
CRV teaches a new way, actually, or several new ways to do dowsing with maps. And if I can use one student as an example, we took a large atlas page, and this student I had named Marla Free. We looked in the gazetteer in the back and just at random picked out a town and found out what page it was on. So we opened this huge atlas to that page, and you did the CRV thing. And as I remember, you were 1/32nd of an inch off an entire page. But you nailed that town.
Well, and what was interesting is how you taught me how to do that, which was you would hold the paper. Of course, I never saw the map itself, but you would hold the paper, and I took a ruler and moved it down over the paper, and my subconscious would make my arms or hands do these sort of twitchy things.
Yeah.
And you would draw a line, and
well,
you kept moving the paper around, and every time I would twitch, you would draw the line, and where the apex or where those lines came together is what you put back on the map. Is that correct?
That's right. This, again, is part of the physical nature of CRV.
Right.
This is a physical discipline, not a mental one. And so you drag that ruler down, and your subconscious will feel a bump or make a twitch or whatever in a physical way right where the target is.
And I remember in practicing, this was after the OJ case, we were given a target of the killers of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. And the map I did put me 2 blocks off of Rockingham.
Oh, the police gave you that one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is astounding for anybody who is interested. You know, we all have parts of us are detectives, you know, in our own life.
Yeah.
But this is extraordinary work. So where are you teaching now? What can we do to find out where you are?
I just got back from a teaching tour over in Ireland, but for the most part...
How about in the United States?
No. For the most part, I teach here at my home in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Now, we now have an excellent trainer for the basic course, and she teaches in Amarillo, Texas. And I'm teaching the higher level courses these days.
So we all have to go to Alamogordo. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we have a thing that we have set up to where if someone will form a class, do all the arrangements, and get the students, a minimum of about 6 students,
right,
then they will get the class for free.
Sounds good to me.
And, you know, if they will organize the class, organize the room, everything else.
Where you're staying, etc. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And, you know, work with us in doing that. The first Irish class, the coordinator set up a room that was, I think, $150 a day, and at the end of the course, I came back with, I think it was $27 for 2 weeks of training work over there. But you know, we make it so that if someone will act as a coordinator and do a really good job of it, then they get the course for free. And I think it's well worth it's well worth it to us, and I think it would be well worth it to anyone who would like to do that.
Well, I think that anybody who's listening better write that down and make a note of it. So your schedule for the next year, you're available then. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, and we have not generated the schedule for next year yet. My wife has been extremely ill. She had an aneurysm and had brain surgery.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And so she's been extremely ill. So we haven't gotten around to developing a schedule for next year. However, if anyone wants to keep up with it, we will have that, and we'll post it on our website.
And your website is?
www.crviewer.com. crviewer.com.
Great. Well, let's take a little bit of a break, and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Lynn, in reference to health issues, are you doing any CRV on body stuff?
We teach a course in medical applications. Now, I imagine that you already know that in the United States, there's a law that says if it's not drugs, then it can't heal. And,
gee, I never heard that before.
Yeah. And that, practicing healing or medical work without a license is totally taboo.
Mm.
And what we try to do is we try to hook people up with a doctor of some kind that they can work with. And we always tell people that, the medical applications is a new and developing field, and that whatever happens, they have got to work with doctors. But we teach it in two phases. One is diagnostics, and the other is what we call influencing, because we can't call it healing,
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is you connect your subconscious to the subconscious of the sick person.
Hmm.
You find out what's wrong with them, and, what's wrong on the surface may not be what's really wrong and causing it. And so
Got it.
You work diagnostics really deeply. And then once you find out what's really honestly wrong with them, then you do another session, and you plan your work. You do another session, and you go into their subconscious, and you try to solve that problem so that then they can heal themselves.
Are we talking lifetimes here, going back into time?
No, you could do that, but we're more immediate. We're more practical than that.
And what have you found? Is it a thought? Is it an emotional trauma? What are you finding?
Many times it's each of those are a combination of them, and many times it's just, like I say, the person is doing something that they don't want to do and don't know why they do it, but they wind up doing it anyway,
mm-hmm.
and they wind up hurting themselves. Cigarettes,
right,
are such until you've gotten into what it really causes, you don't know how much of a total evil on our civilization.
Yeah. It's vile, isn't it?
It really is.
And the addictive properties of what nicotine does. Thank God I just can't stomach it. But I was with people last night. 3 of them are really, really struggling, and they've done the hypnosis and they've done the drugs, and they are still having quite a time.
Yeah. And tobacco is not the only thing that that does that, and that has bad effects on people.
Well, when you talk to groups of people, what's the main concern? What do they want to? What do most people come to you when they want to train in CRV? What do they want to know? What do they want to learn for themselves? What do you hear?
Many people come just because they're curious.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to warn them ahead of time that this is a martial art, and just like any martial art, we teach you the training, and it's the practice of it that will develop those muscles and those pathways inside of you that will make it work best. We tell people that we have a 3-day class, and in those 3 days, you're not going to become a remote viewer.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go home and practice.
Right.
Because of that, we make a deal with anyone who takes a class that they can come back and retake that class as many times as they want for the rest of their life at no cost.
Well, I need a refresher course.
Well,
but I
have
I have to tell you that anybody who takes this course has to be very careful at lunch break, though, because if you've been working and you've been training and learning how to do this, whatever you eat at lunch, you will crave for the rest of your life.
Oh, really?
Oh, my gosh. I think every time I've trained with you, I have to be very careful because if I'm in Tempe, Arizona, and I go to a McDonald's and I order a quarter pounder with extra cheese, I swear I'll be craving that for months and months.
I have never heard that before.
I have to go back to the same restaurant that I ate it in.
Hmm.
Now, what's going on there with the subconscious, Lynn?
I think you're just patterning.
Well, I think that's what it must be. You allow your subconscious to start working, and then it wants to take over.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, what you have to learn to do is to work with it. You can't let it take over, and you can't boss it around. You've got to work, the two of you, in unison on any target. And once you do that, well, shoot, the sky's the limit.
What's the most exciting thing that you have recognized within the last year in either training or doing some of these sessions yourself?
I don't really know what the answer would be to that one because
you've seen the inside of a particle beam, so.
Oh yeah, and I'm not surprised anymore by anything I see in my work or the students' works. But if I ever quit being amazed by it, I'll go back to programming computers.
Sure.
It's totally fascinating. It's something that has just absorbed my life, and I love it. I teach, and people come and they're closed and so on, and all of a sudden they open up and they see what they can really be. And I have had people call me, after practicing, after the basic class, and tell me that they're like 40 years old, and for the first time in their life, they're awake.
Oh.
And that's very rewarding to me. I really love that.
Well, and I credit you, Lynn. I tell everybody that I really did not feel validated as a psychic, even though, you don't have to be a psychic, of course, to do this work, and most of the people who are really good at this aren't necessarily psychics, but it really wasn't until I trained with you, because your methodology and who you are as a person is just so validating. Well,
this is, like I say, this is Ingo Swann's methodology. But I think one of the things that I really like is when I see a natural psychic come in. And for them, well, like for you, instead of trying to teach them the remote viewing part of controlled remote viewing,
yes,
I teach them the controls.
Right.
And, for natural psychics, one of the biggest problems they have is that they don't have control over it.
Right.
And so we hold a class once a year for natural psychics, who are good natural psychics. And in that class, we teach them only the controls, how to control their natural ability. And like I was saying earlier, the results that come from that, when you add this ability and the natural talent together, it's just phenomenal. I mean, I look at the people's work and I think, not on my best day could I ever do that.
Well, it's so exciting, and I guess I'm coming down to Alamogordo really soon. So your book, The Seventh Sense, The Secrets of Remote Viewing as Told by a Psychic Spy for the U.S. Military, is just awesome. I love the way you write. It's very clear. You have some incredible stories here. And anybody who does take the opportunity to train with you, go to lunch or dinner with Lynn, watch what you're eating, but listen to some of his amazing stories. And you've got some of the most incredible UFO experiences as well.
Oh, yeah. Those things happen. People ask me, Well, a guy asked me over the radio one time on an interview, he said, well, why do you think these things happen to you? And I said, I think they happen to everybody. I just started paying attention.
Right, exactly. And because you're also the son of a Baptist minister, correct?
The grandson of a Methodist minister.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
And you're a systems buster, and you have to pave the way. Lynn, thank you so much for your time. It's just
thanks
been
for inviting me.
So great to talk with you, and I'm excited to put the word out there for you. So give your web address one more time.
Okay, it's CRVIEWER.com.
Thank you so much. My best to Linda, and we'll talk with you later.